Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We are doing a solo for the first time in a while, I think. I think the last time I did a solo was a game review. And yeah, it's just going to be you and me this time. I know you're excited about that. So we are doing a kind of a reaction video. It's more of a response, and I do better in my head if I can just let them speak and I can do a response as necessary. So please do tell me what you think in the comments below. This is not a attack on anybody per se. This is not a anti their opinion, like, oh, I don't care about their opinions or anything. It's none of that. It's the misinformation of news that I have been hearing and kind of my interpretation of the entire fiasco, and I will give a full-fledged um, spiel about that, I guess, to explain. Now, uh, this is a Melanie Mac video with guest starring Razor Fist. So we're probably going to just jump into it, but I would like to say before we jump into it that they don't necessarily have all the pieces of the puzzle. And it's very easy to do that, so I'm not putting this against them. I do enjoy Razor Fist. I don't agree with all of his takes, but I do enjoy his content for what it is. And Melanie Mac, I used to enjoy her content a lot. She's kind of changed her content, and that's her prerogative. It's her channel and whatever. Um, but I will say that it doesn't seem that Melanie Mac's really interested in the game. Because the whole topic of this is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. You've already noticed it for the thumbnail and everything else. Um, I don't think it's her style of game, but she's commenting on it as if it is, which is an odd thing because I don't go around commenting on like NASCAR games or NBA 2K, whatever. Um, it's they're not my thing, so I don't really comment on them. If I played them, I would comment on them because it would make more sense. Now, I get that she's a pop culture type of face, public entity and whatnot, but I don't see it as just because you're public means you know everything you're talking about. And I'm not saying she's stupid. I'm not saying anything like that. But I am saying that I do question why she's even talking about it in the first place beyond giving just a I heard something and I don't like the sound of that. That's fine. That's what I would expect. Low information is public people are a dime a dozen. We don't need more of them. But I also think that if it's a topic you're looking into, maybe you should look into it a little bit more. Do slightly more research than not. Now, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying I'm going to be 100% accurate because you can't be when you're reporting anything. Journalism or just mainstream media reporting things to you or whatever the case might be, they're not always right either. So no matter who you watch, no matter who you're listening to, they can be wrong. This concludes me. But I will hopefully show the entirety of it in a way that it makes logical sense to you. It may not be 100% accurate in reality, and maybe we'll never find out what the 100% reality is, but there is a little context added to this. Now, Endymion did come out with a video here recently, and I'm going to comment on that after this video, or maybe bits and pieces of that information he shared I will also throw in there alongside. So we'll see what happens. So let's just jump into it and figure out what exactly it is. If you like this content, or if you want to join the questioners in subscribing, commenting, liking, all that fun stuff, and sharing with people that you think might also enjoy it, we would greatly appreciate you and your support. So let's jump into this.
So is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 woke?
Short story, no, not inherently. Woke is this really bad terminology that's coming around, and I admit I used it for the longest time as well. However, I changed my tune, and it's easy to recognize because the idea of woke ideology, pun intended, is more basic in on everything and anything about the project hinges on the concept of there being diversity, equity, inclusion, or any of that kind of racist, bigoted stuff that they're all trying to pull now. What it doesn't mean is that, oh, it has something in it I don't like, therefore it's woke. That's not what it means. What it means is that they threw the script out because they needed to say 2 minutes of I'm non binary and you're a bigot because you don't agree with me, or I have to pull a barv to do that. That's woke ideology through and through. But a character having sex with another character, regardless of gender or whatever else, sexuality, species, or anything of the other like, does not inherently make it woke. It means you have options. Case in point being Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 has what every D&D game should have, and that's player character freedom to do pretty much whatever. So if you want to be a bard and you want to use your charisma and seduce a female dragon or a male dragon and make the big bad guy not the big bad guy and become a pet or an ally or something to your campaign, if you can pull off the hits and roll the dice properly, you can make that happen. It's not too much to say that you can't do it because whatever reason. Now, obviously, this will depend on the DMs and whatnot, but the idea behind Baldur's Gate 3 was that if you can do it, they want you to be able to do it in the game. And there's the joke about the whole horny hammer and everything, about all the characters wanting to sleep with you and whatever. That's because they're giving the player the option to turn them down, to pause on that, or to reject them outright. It's your ability to do so, and it does come across sometimes as rushed. But then again, some people are like that. Some people are like, hey, you want to hook up? That's just how they are. Reality is different than what we wish the world to be like. It's good, bad, whatever, doesn't matter. The point being, that was what Baldur's Gate 3 was. Now, they will comment on Baldur's Gate 3, so I will let them do a little bit more. But the idea that Baldur's Gate 3 is woke is rubbish. Are there things in there that would align with the ideology? Sure. But it's not, the whole game is not made with the intent of ideology in it. The intent is to let you do as you want to in whatever way you want to, just like any other game that lets you make whatever you want, however you want, wherever you want. That's just what it is. It's a sandbox game. It lets you reconstruct your world, how your character is or whatever, the way you want to play them. If you want to play them gay, you play them gay. If you want to play them asexual, you play them asexual. If you want to play them hetero, you play them hetero. Whatever the case might be, that's up to you. What they don't do is take it and shove it down your throat. What they don't do is force you into every possible situation where you can't bypass it. You can't skip it. No. You can bypass pretty much everything quote unquote woke in Baldur's Gate 3 just doing the story manually and like normal. Just play like a normal person. It'd be boring comparative to all the wild, crazy stuff you'd get into, but it would be very normal along the lines, so you don't have to worry about that necessarily. And obviously there are caveats because it's a branching story, so things branch in other directions. You can't avoid that. But point being, woke is a term I don't like being used as much as it is used because it's not very accurate of everything. Just because something like just because there's a gay person in it or a gay relationship does not mean it's inherently woke if it fits in the story. Now, we'll get into that little detail later.
Or is it not? I had a conversation with Razorfist to talk about this, so let's go ahead and dive into that in my first collab on this channel. Okay, so Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I'm seeing all over the place. There's kind of, even in the anti-woke community, it's pretty split. Like pretty much 50-50 of people who are saying this is woke and this is not woke.
Right.
So,
And the this is not woke is the winning option out of the options. It's not woke. I'm getting really tired of it being called woke. It's it really doesn't have to be complicated, but for some reason everyone's making it complicated, but everybody has an opinion, just like belly buttons and buttholes. Everyone's got one. Except Kyle XY. But all things considered, when you take the entire puzzle and you finish the entire thing, it shows that it's not. Now, there are other aspects, and that'll be the Endymion stuff, and that'll be these guys. We'll get into that, but ultimately speaking, that's not what this is. So just purge that from your mind, and then come to a decision later on. Because after I'm done giving you the whole picture, hopefully you'll understand that's not really what it's being claimed to be.
Oh, I mean, we'll talk more about what's been going on with this, but I just want your first impression.
Also, keep in mind that Melanie Mack has like no information on this, and that's nothing against her. I mean, I do think that she should have done a little bit more research, like I mentioned earlier, but it's not her wheelhouse. This is outside of her wheelhouse, and thus, it's not something she would normally play. It's not something she has played, like the first one. That being said, a lot of other variables are included in this. So Razorfist does have a background in it. Melanie Mack does not.
Impression of this. Do you think it's woke or not?
It seems like it definitely is an attempt to go that way.
It seems like that if you have partial information.
And maybe, depending on who you believe, they might have intended to go that way with the first game.
They didn't.
Which was decidedly...
Ooh.
Kingdom Come Deliverance is decidedly based. If you've never played the game,
it is.
You should. Every other NPC that you encounter, he opens a conversation with the phrase, Jesus Christ be praised.
Based.
Wow.
Or, yeah, God be with you.
Based.
It kind of takes a dim view on the payment of indulgences for sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The game features Jan Hus, who was one of the pre-Martin Luther figures, who was
proto-Protestant. Now, here's the funny thing. The game is showing a historical world, a historical time period, and is saying, here's stuff that happened, and we're going to fulfill that by having the people say things that they would say. Because it would make sense. That's a terminology that would be used, not necessarily in English, but in terms of when somebody is interacting amongst the others of their kind in their own country, they'd be like, this is how they would behave in this time period when the church has a lot of influence. So it makes logical sense for them to go around saying, Jesus Christ be praised, or God be with you, because that's something historically that would make sense in the situation when everyone's religious. Why would that be odd? It wouldn't be, and that's the main point.
Incredibly important in laying the foundation for the Lutheran Reformation later on. So this is, in short, it's a game set in 15th century Bohemia.
Okay.
That actually looks and plays like it was set in 15th century Europe.
That's the point. That's the setting. That's how it's supposed to be when you're going for authenticity. And there are a couple minor things that are not authentic about it, like the kettle caps and whatnot. I get that. But in the grand scheme of things, what they're going for is the authenticity of being in the world, the ambient existence in the world.
Right.
Wow.
Sorry. How it would be for people in that time period. Because again, you're playing as Henry, a specific character. You're only guiding his actions. That's all you're doing. You're guiding his actions. Same thing in Witcher 3 when you play with Geralt. You guide his actions. You get to make his choices, but he's not you. Same thing, Henry and Geralt are not you. But you get to guide their actions and say, are they going to become the good guy, the bad guy? Are they going to save this person? They're not going to save this person. Are they going to help this little village? They're not going to help this village. That's up to you as the player. Excuse me. And that's up to you in an RPG. But it's not an RPG like Skyrim where you're just going to make a random character, no voice. You just walk in there and you respond by clicking a button, and it just goes into them monologuing with you. That's not the way the game goes. So you're playing in a world as if this is a story that's already been told, and you're just getting to experience it for the first time. That's more or less what it's like.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know if you remember the controversy around the first game about like representation?
I like briefly read something about that. I didn't see it about how they wanted them to put in a black. There's no black representation or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. They were mad there were no best.
There would not be any large amounts of population of any type of African origin, considering where this is located in Bohemia and where Africa is located. There could hypothetically still be merchants, but this is pretty far away. So by this point, you probably have had the African merchants traded to somebody else who've already moved it back. Because typically, when traders go from places, like traders from Africa, for example, would go to a popular port where they can sell all their goods, and then they would return home with more goods to trade at home to turn around and buy and sell and bring back. And it's just a constant stream, right? It'd be rare to have, go walk into a city in the middle of, I don't know, Norway, and it just be black people everywhere, or Asian people everywhere, or Hispanic people everywhere. It wouldn't make sense. And I say Hispanic in terms of South American, not as Spanish. Um, it would be weird to see that because it wouldn't make sense in the time period. So if there was a merchant, it probably wouldn't be an African merchant. It could be. It's not impossible, but it would be very, very unlikely. But you're definitely not walking out and just seeing some Joe Schmo who lives in the area and has been there, for thousands of years with his family and whatever. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be a thing.
Basketball Americans in the cast, and everyone was white. So,
When did the first one come out?
2018, right?
Okay, so it's
Right.
not like ancient. Okay, so
no,
wow.
exactly. Like they were. It was kind of. I would say wokeness was approaching its peak a little bit in like 2018. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's important to note that because Warhorse Studios, when they were confronted on that, they stood in open defiance of that. They were like, "No, we're
Okay.
set in medieval Bohemia.
Things have changed for Warhorse Studios, but we'll get into that later.
There were no black people there, so there
Yeah.
are no black people in our game." And then they were bought by the same parent company
Embracer.
Oh.
as Deep Silver. So that happened in 2019, right after the first game comes out. So
Oh.
yeah, there was some kind of,
Okay.
so the big story was maybe Saudi Arabia is mulling over.
Correlation does not equal causation. I want to throw that out there. I'm not saying that that's what they're claiming or anything. It's not my position. But I will say that a lot of people are saying, well, because they were bought by Embracer, therefore they have to follow all Embracer's things, which is technically true. But the difference is what Embracer's actually asking for. So we'll get to that later.
Banning the game for getting all gay on us.
Right.
Right.
So wait, did the first one have gay stuff in it at all?
Yes. There's the bad guy. Based. No. Okay. It doesn't matter if there is a gay person in it. It's how they represent the gay behavior in the series. That's what matters, because people were gay back then, or participated in the homosexual behavior, we'll say, rather than just be gay, because they didn't have pride flags and pride parades and stuff.
Like actual gay romance options.
And it wasn't romance options for the player, it was just a character in the series, in the first one.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
You had like you had one romantic interest, I think, and it ended in marriage.
Potentially, because again, you can choose to do or not do at your whim, because it's an RPG. That's the whole point of branching the choices.
It was
wow,
very
so wholesome. Okay.
I would not say it's wholesome. It's kind of Witcherish in that there's nudity and stuff. If you
Oh,
pursue
right.
that,
Okay.
yeah. So
Well, I mean, if they're married, it's technically wholesome. It's just you're viewing it would not be wholesome. That's a different story. But I'm not going to get into semantics, even though that's what I'm good at.
I wouldn't say it was traditional in that sense, but still, you do actually have to court a woman if you decide to pursue the romantic interest. If you're one of those players, then you actually have to present a ring. You have to go get a ring. It's a whole.
Wow.
Which again is it's creating the ambiance. It's creating the world you're in. It's the world building aspect that basically takes you out of where you are now and puts you in the world of Bohemia in the 15th century. That's the point. You're in the 15th century because it's in the 15th century. You're not in the 21st century. You're in the 15th. You're playing characters who believe things in the 15th, that behaved a certain way in the 15th, that did things differently in the 15th century. The rules are not the same as what they are now. And that's what we're literally escaping from into their world. That's the whole point.
Thing.
Wow.
And yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of how it went. And it was only one person, and it was only a woman.
Okay.
And
They had limited options, whether it is they wanted to add gay options or other. It's kind of irrelevant because of how they depict it. But even if they did, all they would be doing is giving you more options. You do not have to, because all, as far as I'm aware, every amount of, in this entire Warhorse Studios Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 world, all of them require you to do multiple checks to get things going. It's not just like you stumble in and, oh, I put the wrong thing in the wrong hole. And it's just like, no. None of that happens. You have to like actively go for it in order to get it. Same way as if it's hetero. So it's just the idea is just strange that they're just like, well, they only had one. They joked because they couldn't have gay people because they had limited budget. They didn't do more than one person because they had limited budget. So it's a bit of an oddity in that regard.
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Well,
So that was,
yeah.
and they
So-
responded to that at the time, like
Mhm.
saying like straight up, no. Henry is not your character. He's our character. Henry.
Right. I saw a comment. They were like, so if someone's gay, they're forced to be in a straight relationship. And then the comment was like, you're playing as Henry. This isn't
Yes.
you.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so after all this pops off, just recently,
Right.
my fellow autists begin combing over the comments section on the Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 videos that they had
Okay.
put up years, it was like 8 years ago. And
Yeah.
apparently someone asked Daniel Vavra, who is the head of Warhorse Studios, if Henry was gay or if there would be gay romance options, something like, to which he emphatically replied, what? No, he sells propane. What do you mean? Right?
I gotta say, he's got a good accent for that.
He basically did the Hank Hill thing. No,
Yeah.
he definitively stated, like, the player's not your own character. He's Henry, and Henry is entirely too Eastern European to be gay, apparently.
I mean, I wouldn't say that because there wouldn't be gay people in Eastern Europe if they're Eastern European. That doesn't follow. I get the point he's making. I get it's kind of a joke, but I'm saying in the actual perspective of things, it doesn't follow. Now, I will say that there are aspects that get really, really weird to explain because of how the overarching deal is. So there's the straight factor. Can a straight person be gay? And that's people arguing, well, you're gay, you're born gay from birth, which there's no gay gene or anything that we know of. It's just attraction to something or the other. But then there's the argument, which I'm not going to plea in either direction, but it's like, well, can a gay person do something, or I should say, can a straight person do something gay, or can a gay person do something straight? And it's like, yes, because it's all about, like, when you're heterosexual, you are a person participating in the other, thus heterosexuality. And then if you're participating in homosexual, you're dealing in the same, so similar. You being a man with a man, or you being a woman with a woman. And it's more about the aspect of if Henry has a gay partner or a gay romance option or whatever the case might be, is it going to be something where he can't do it because he's straight? And they said he was straight. Like, oh, we said he's straight. And they even had something pull up. He's like, no, Henry is a straight guy. That's fine. But is it an option of where could he change his mind over time? I don't care what anybody's stance is on whether you can or cannot do that. It's a game based off of history. There's a lot of weird stuff in history. But also, I only really care about the science aspect of it. And if you don't have a scientific explanation for it, I don't really care. So, in this particular instance, they're doing what I think they'll be doing. We'll get to that when we get to explain.
Right.
So, so like I said, they stuck by the first game, has just the one romance option. I think there's maybe one other, I don't know. I haven't played it back to front a bunch of different times, but there's like one marriage option, and it's his childhood sweetheart, no less. You meet,
which feels really random for an RPG because I feel like you should technically be able to marry even a random NPC because that's just the RPG experience, I guess. Like, give them just a random voice over for when they talk to you. Like, all these different, like, if you're Henry and you want to marry a woman and you have 1,000 different NPC designs or whatever through AI sorting or whatever the case might be, just give them all the same line, same voice or whatever. And then if you pick one, you can, like, that would be like a true RPG in my mind, similar to what you could do, I think, in Skyrim, because you just kind of like pick somebody and be like, you, me, yeah, married.
meet her at the beginning of the game. Yeah, you save her at the beginning of the game, I think, and then long down the road, you have an option to marry her. And they stood by that.
See, that's the thing that's crazy to me is when these companies will like stand against the woke people, and then in a next installment, they pander to them after they already made all the woke people mad.
All right, Melanie, I love you to death, my sister in Christ. Please stop calling everything woke. It's getting overused. It's making everything that we've fought for against the extreme leftist propaganda machine look like you're just becoming the extreme left, just the opposite extreme. And not in a, oh, it's alt-right popular. No. We're talking like you're literally them, but just in disagreement. And they weren't even liked by their own side for the most part, because they kept shoving their side, the moderate lefts, over into the right side. They didn't have that in-between option. You were just shoving everybody because they don't agree with everything you say. That's the mentality of the extreme left. And so instead of everybody being in the center shifted based upon who's pushing who. But if you're just going to call everything woke when it's not inherently woke, could it be woke? Sure. If the entire messaging in there was all just about, oh, you need to do the proper pronouns, or, oh, no, you need to, like, yes, that would be woke. That's not a thing in this series. It's not. It would feel so unnatural and out of place. It would get removed immediately, probably regardless of what the studio owners would want. Because it wouldn't work. It would be out of place. It wouldn't make sense in any shape or form, and they'd be worried about losing money for it. So please stop just calling it woke for the sake of calling it woke. There are things that are woke, but you can identify them as woke by their entirety of being.
And so then all of the anti-woke people, you just want to make them both mad now, because the woke people are still going to be mad about what happened with the first game, and then now there's this, and that's kind of crazy to me. But
now I want to kind of address Daniel Vavra's comment on it being a Christian game or not. There's a lot of topics, and I think Endymion also touched upon it in terms of, is it a Christian game or not a Christian game? They said it was a Christian game. It's like, no, okay. There's a difference between saying it's a Christian game and it being a Christian game. So saying something's a Christian game means it has Christianity origins or whatever in it. Like, for example, Assassin's Creed, when you play Ezio Auditore, there's the Papal States, the papacy and everything. Christianity exists. It's all throughout, right? But it's not a Christian. It's not games made by Christians for Christians that you buy at a Christian bookstore. It's not what it is. What it is it has a Christian underlying theme. Now, whether you follow that or not is up to how you play Henry. But it's still Henry. Now, Daniel Vavro's got some bad takes as of late, because I think he's moved to the extreme right, kind of alongside Melanie Mack, and just swings at everybody who comes anywhere near, because he doesn't know how to differentiate friend or foe, sarcasm from not sarcasm. He doesn't want to clarify things. He's kind of hiding in the back. It's a place I'm sad, because I feel like this should all be easy to deal with. But since he's not taking anything into account, he's just kind of doing his own thing. It's going to cause problems for him, cause problems for the company, and for the gamers, because we're not getting as much truth as we should get out of this. So I'm not defending Daniel Vavro. Just, well, I gotta defend him, gotta protect him. No. He says some stupid stuff, but he also just says how it is. And just because he says stupid stuff doesn't mean he's lying about everything he says, because otherwise, if he's lying about everything he says, he's lying about the stupid stuff he says, which means they're not stupid. He's actually being pretty based. So you can't take that route. You got to take everything about case-by-case basis.
But in terms
Did you see
of
his reaction at all? Like any of that stuff?
no, I didn't.
Yeah, so Daniel Vavra, who's very active on social media, and usually,
And he really shouldn't be, let's be honest. He's an emotional egoist, and that's a really bad person to put in the public eye as the face of your company. Also, get rid of your community manager for Discord, because that's a bad rap too.
pretty based, you know?
Okay.
He initially ignored it, and finally, after all the noise popped off, he just steps all the way in it.
Oh.
He cries, he claims he's being canceled by both sides.
Oh.
Which is what would happen if you don't talk about topics that people are rising up and saying, hey, this sounds pretty bad. I want to comment on this. Now, there are some things you can't comment on because of whether it be an NDA, company policies, that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you're going to have to figure something out in that regard.
Before you know it, he's up to his armpits in feces. And of course, that did absolutely nothing to assuage our anxieties. And so that's really kind of where my take was. Like a week ago, I was asked about the story before there were more developments. And that was kind of my takeaway was Daniel Vavra really shouldn't have said anything, honestly. Like,
Well, he should have said something. He just should have said it with a better temperament than just blasting everything that comes in place. He literally just took the shotgun. When someone knocked on the door, he just shot. He didn't think of who might be on the other side. He just kind of blasted away.
if they wanted to have this in the game for whatever reason, and we're still kind of unclear on exactly what form this takes, then Daniel
Yeah.
Vavra
We're not crazily uninformed, because he has commented on it, and Grums has covered it, and other people have covered it. We know where we're going with this.
really should have said nothing because he made it 1,000 times worse. Because now people are
He did.
speculating, like, what is this, like a gay bathhouse? What is this, like a gay
Yeah.
club? What's this?
My thing is, it's just like, because people are like, is it woke? Is it not woke? I say if there are gay romance options, that's an automatic woke for me.
Which is not a proper stance you should take, because that is an improper usage of the term of woke. It is not an ideological, it is rather an option. And options are there specifically, because if it was a whole bunch of heterosexual romances, you would not say it's woke, despite it being the exact same thing minus an alteration. Now, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, and you also don't have to choose it in the game, just like you don't in Baldur's Gate 3. But I know you didn't pick up Baldur's Gate 3, which you'll probably comment on if I recall correctly. So we don't have to really cover that.
Because when you're promoting something unnatural and immoral as a normal thing, I mean, again, that depends.
Just because something exists does not mean it's being promoted. If you have a gay character in a story that's taking place in a real historical location in the 15th century, you can't say, well, they didn't have gay people back then. We obviously know they had people who had the homosexual attraction and behavior. We don't know if it's in a particular area, how many there were. We're not playing that game. But to say that they're promoting it when Daniel Vavro, which she wouldn't know this because she hasn't checked it, has said that there's a way where you can like choose to take Henry to be gay, but then the church condemns it as an abominable sin, blah 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 blah, which Melanie Mack would say is based if she knew, but she doesn't, so she wouldn't. But having that option, yeah, I get that her puritanical tendencies would lean more towards the favor of, well, we shouldn't have any gay relationships whatsoever. Like, but by that logic, if you're going full puritanical, you shouldn't have any heterosexual relationships because they have sexual relations. And she shouldn't want that either, because in the first game, you can have sex with a person outside of marriage. Well, she'd think that would be promoting. It's not promoting. It's just the character told Henry, I want you to do this. Because it's a role-playing game. That's what RPG stands for. Role-playing game. So, to be like, oh, they're promoting it just because it exists is not how, that's not how promotion works. Promotion is when you say, I'm going to present you something and then I'm going to keep feeding it to you. But if the option, which Daniel Vavro says, the option to do it, it's like 4 to more individual separate points and options to even get to the gay scene, which you have to actively pursue in order to get to it. So if you don't want it, you don't play it. So if they had an achievement for how many people played the game without ever having a homosexual relationship, what would you call that? Like 99.9% of players are not going to do that. They're just not. Because they're not interested in it. That's not what they want. That's not why they're there. But then you might have that 1.1% or something that's like, I'm gay, they're gay, blah, 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 let's put it together, and blah, they go through the entire game playing as a gay character. Whatever. But here's the point. He may be straight, and you can get into the whole argument, can a straight guy do something that's gay, and can a gay guy do something that's straight, blah, 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 whatever the case might be. Again, I don't particularly care. I'm just pointing out the fact that it's an RPG game, and while Henry is still Henry, there might be circumstances that Henry would find amenable to that concept. But you're guiding him so he won't just accidentally go that way, and you're going, oops, I tripped into a homosexual relationship. Woo! Like, that's not what they're going to do. So probably you're not going to do it. Based. Whatever. Now, this comes into when Endymion mentioned things like Embracer Group having standards for what people have to do/use in their games. But surprisingly, even though Endymion made it sound like, oh, this is the level, they have to do this, they have to do that. And it was like, but actually they don't. It says they leave it up to the studios to implement it. Now, in this sense, they left it to Warhorse to implement it, and this is where the bigger picture comes into play, and this is a little snippet of it, even though we're only 7 minutes into a 20-minute video. They aren't necessarily showing homosexual relationships in a positive light. There's actually a lot of backlash in-game you will get from the church, from your friends, from your family members, the living ones, and just the people in the society as a whole. So, you can't say they're promoting it when they're actively not promoting it. That wouldn't make any sense.
Depends on how they, I mean, I guess there could be a way that they could portray it that, hey, this is wrong, but I doubt that's going to.
Well, you doubt that because you haven't actually listened to the notes. You haven't done the research, which, I mean, I get. You're probably really busy. You probably got a lot going on. But it would have helped you if you had just added a little bit of extra research into it. And it's not fun trying to piece all this together unless you enjoy the kind of puzzle piecing, intellectual brainstorm of just my head hurts over and over again because I'm just thinking too much kind of syndrome. You're probably not going to enjoy it. And not everybody does. And again, you'll do that research when it's something in your wheelhouse. Again, I don't do sports games because I don't play sports games really. I only play like the fun ones like the Nintendo Mario Super Strikers or NFL Blitz 2001 on my 64. I only play a very small window of sports games. So I only comment on a very small window of sports games. because it's not my wheelhouse to go out of that wheelhouse. Her wheelhouse is Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Her wheelhouse is types of game, whether it be third person or otherwise. That's her wheelhouse. Then she'll do more research in that. When it comes to a Tomb Raider video that she's gonna do, she usually has a lot of information. She knows where they're deviating. She knows where they're staying to the lore. She has those kind of things because exactly of what her wheelhouse is.
Be the case based off what he's saying in their policies on their Steam boards about no bigotry against the homosexual and transgender.
That's a community manager. That's not necessarily the whole company, and that person, I believe, was replaced, and or they changed everything to just be nice.
Community and all that, but
Which I heard
know, yeah.
today,
Which ironically does not apply to Daniel Vavro.
they reversed.
oh, did they?
Just today, I heard this that they reversed their policy on the Steam forums or whatever, and said basically released a statement saying, "Be nice." Like that was it.
Just be nice. Okay.
Play nice.
Which is a good thing to put in a forum. Just like, hey guys, be nice to each other. And leave it at that. Now, there might be legal things or whatever, like, hey, no, threatening people's lives, blah, blah, blah. But Steam already covers that in their own stuff. But as for the developers, they get really, really, really picky with their own stuff. So it's understandable to some extent.
Like that was essentially it. But of course, Steam, so they start banning people on Steam. That's a big thing.
Right.
And then Reddit got involved.
Oh.
Nobody cares about Reddit.
Oh, not Reddit.
Right? So someone asked Warhorse on their official Reddit in some Q&A why in the first game Henry doesn't touch pee-pee. Sorry.
No, that's amazing. That's hilarious.
To which I would love it if he actually asked it in those words too. To which, at what point, whoever the social media manager is, who by the way should be fired, should have been fired.
I fully agree.
Yeah. Good.
They replied. Just guess how they replied. Seriously, what did they say for why Henry doesn't touch pee-pee in the first game?
He's in the closet and they need to throw a parade for him first.
You're so close.
Really?
No. Actually, no. Budget restrictions. That's it.
Budget? Oh, we couldn't animate another PP. Only had enough budget for one PP.
We only had the budget for one ding-a-ling. Sorry. It's okay. So a total contradiction of what Daniel Vavra and his explanation on YouTube.
To be fair, they are two different people and they have two different viewpoints on things. From what I understand, the Discord and Steam community managers, all their social media people, were like pronouns in the bio kind of people. And that's not Daniel Vavro either. But I don't think he hires them either. So I don't know how that works. But something caused them to replace it. So whoever was in power for that, well, good job for you guys. Or at least restricting them in their actions.
8 years ago, where he just said Henry is your... can I just say, as you alluded, is there a single gaming controversy in the history of human civilization that was ever improved by Reddit? Ever?
Oh, no.
The answer is no.
No.
Why?
Oh my goodness, no. If Reddit is happy with you, then you're probably doing something wrong. If they talk about whatever the controversy is and not get their posts taken down, yeah, you're probably doing something wrong.
No kidding. And in a post Gamergate society, how is it even possible publishers have not realized opening a sub?
Because publishers do not pay attention, just like the executives at Disney, Warner Bros, and etc. other studios don't pay attention either. That's why.
Reddit is the dumbest decision since opening a reverse mortgage or something. It's like opening a 24-hour liquor store. You're just asking to have a shotgun shoved in your face at some point. You know what I mean? So sure enough, it made it 1,000 times worse is all I was saying.
Okay, yeah. So just my kind of trying to understand about this is going back to half the people saying, oh, it's woke or it's not woke. And I think that when it comes to, because there was also another conversation by um someone from Fan Impulse who was like, "Hey, if a game specifically asking Christian gamers, if a game has gay sex scenes in it, but they're optional, do you not play the game at all, or do you still play it?" And there was like a obviously that's gonna look different for different people.
The proper church term for this would be whatever fits your conscience, but at the same time, like it's like when you go see, if you're a Christian and you go see a movie, can you not watch the movie because there's tons of blood and gore, and it seems like it's glorifying that aspect of the movie? Well, no, you still go see it unless you get really, unsettled, like your stomach gets unsettled and you feel sick when you're around lots of blood and gore. It's not for everyone. So you do it on a per basis, but at the same time, somebody feels really sick when they see the smoochy smoochy romance woo woo novels that are made into movies, and they don't want to go see that either. It's just preference and what you can handle. It's not a matter, like, you have to use some semblance of understanding and discernment on what you can handle yourself. The rest of it makes absolutely no logical sense to just be like, well, they did this thing, therefore I'm not into that. And it's like, but what if it's a historical document that they just put into movie form and the character's actually gay? Or maybe there was actually, it played a role in the overarching story in history. Well, you're not going to watch it because it has that scene in it. And it's like, you are more than welcome to not do that, but to demand that others, like other Christians, do the same as well, is a bit of an odd scenario and an odd place to take, because only a puritanical person would do that. But the people who are puritanical are fine being puritanical, so it doesn't really bother them that much. But in this situation, it's like, if it has options of a gay scene, but you never pursue the gay scene, does it really have a gay scene? And it's the Schrodinger's box, or Schrodinger's cat, if you want to go that route. Where is the cat alive or dead? Well, you don't know until you open the thing. Like, it's until you do the actual thing. So if you go through like Baldur's Gate 3 and you play the whole game and you never have sex with a bear, is there bear sex content in the game? Well, technically speaking, no, you didn't participate in any of that, so you didn't experience any of it. Is there technically in the game files to be pursued and to be experienced? Yes, but you didn't actually do it. So in this situation, if you can play the entirety of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and not actively pursue gay relationships, then you're not really accessing gay romance in a game. That's obvious. If the hint of it being in the game causes you problems, that's a thing you need to work on. That's a you problem. And your heart's in some messed up place. But if it's something where you see it and you're revolted by it, like the average straight guy is revolted by two guys doing it because it's not what they're attracted to. They're against that kind of a thing. And then if you look at things from the attraction aspect, a girl seeing two girls doing it might be revolted because that's not what she normally is into. Because unless you are gay or lesbian, you're not going to necessarily like gay lesbian stuff, inherently speaking. And I know there's jokes to go with that, but I'm not going to go that route. But this is kind of a weird question to ask and expect to get serious answers, because everything is just taken at face value with no deep thought added to it.
But for me, that's where I draw a line at a hard no personally. That's what I was with like Baldur's Gate 3, because I was like, okay, this actually looks like an awesome game. But because of the gay crap and the bear, I was like, I can't.
And again, for one, that's a druid. It's not actually a bear. It's actually a person who's using magic to take the physicality of a bear, transform into a bear. Second, you don't have to do it. It's not required. It's not a main storyline thing. The characters are options that you can take. You could use these characters, or you could leave them at your camp and never actually ever touch them. It's purely possible. But again, it's a Dungeons and Dragons thing. And if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, you would know that you have whatever freedom the DM gives you. And that's pretty much whatever you want within the bounds of the game. And some homebrews allow you to literally seduce, probably a bear. But in this situation, it'd be just a druid that looks like a bear. And yeah, it's probably uncomfortable and disturbing no matter how you think about it. But at the same time, it's Dungeons and Dragons. It's letting you pick the options. As delusional and disgusting as you might be, they're giving you the options to do whatever you want, because there's not like whatever the creator, the player's character's imagination can go. That's what you do. It's like, I want to be able to walk on there. Okay, well, you have this device now. You can do that. And it's like, okay, well, if the DM okays it, that's what it is. If the DM doesn't okay it, that's not what it is. It's pretty cut and dry.
Can't. I just can't. Even if it's optional, and just knowing it's there, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's so.
That's like saying I can't go outside because I just know that there's the option of gay people existing and I just can't do it. It's just, that's a ridiculous stance to take. It's not like anybody's asking you to go see Brokeback Mountain. No one's taking, that's not like, that's an unavoidable, unskippable thing. Like, you're gonna experience that no matter what you do, because you're going into a specifically, explicitly gay-based system. Same thing as Bros or any of the other versions. It's like watching, what is it? Orange is the New Black. It's like filled with lesbian stuff. You're going into it knowing ahead of time that that's like the main feature of that entire drama / prison thing. Like, that's the aspect. That's the whole kit and caboodle. If you're doing 50 Shades of Grey, you know there's like bondage stuff in it. That's the whole thing. That's it. That's all there is. But when you're going into a world set in 15th century Bohemia, and you have the church extremely influential and active, it's not like you're just going around seeing gay orgies everywhere. That's not the main purpose of the game. But you have a person who's hiding that there's gay, and then you could have multiple steps that you have to actively choose to get to the point where you can have that relationship with them. That's a realistic situation in Bohemia in the 15th century. That's realistic. That's not just like, it's in there because they just felt like shoving some gay scenes in, because why not? That's ridiculous.
So dumb. It's absolutely dumb. That's what I don't like about Baldur's Gate.
I don't have to like it, but I can recognize the fact that it does exist in some games, and some games you wouldn't even realize it exists because it plays such a minute role. But that's the whole point, is that it's a minute role. And if it is a minute role, then it doesn't matter. Shocked Pikachu face. So, if we're going to take the stance that we don't like it and we're disgusted by it and we don't want it in the game, okay. But to say that the whole game is woke, and because there's even the option of this, well, unless you pick the option, you won't get the option, and thus it doesn't exist in your particular game. Congratulations. You're just a normal person. But I feel like this is being extremely misrepresented, and it's going to perpetuate more and more misunderstandings of what's going on. And because people were like, oh, who's going to be gay with, which I think they're going to touch on, so we'll save that part for there. But there's so much stuff that they're just kind of jumping on it, and it's like that reactionary thing where, like, they just, if somebody says like, we want to control, and they're like, ah, and it's like things that are trying to control you, and they're like, ah, like they jump the gun. They try to empty the entire magazine before, or I guess in this case probably a drum, and they're trying to empty the whole drum just before they get to the actual stuff. And then something comes out, and they're like, oh well, that was different than I thought it was. You don't say. Now, could the game be worse? Sure. It's unlikely due to all the puzzle pieces put together, but it is possible.
3 is, and it kind of is germane to this, is it's not, at a certain point, you're basically sacrificing in a weird way the designer's vision. Because, like,
Oh yeah.
I could see some of the characters in Baldur's Gate 3 being gay and it being true to their character. Because there's
Right.
some that are foppish. One of them sounds like Milo. Love you, Milo,
That-
by the way. Love Milo.
Milo's
That is
like-
not an insult. It's not an insult. we both love Milo, but
Yes.
you know, kind of has that accent,
Gay.
expectation, and whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, I could, and he's a vampire, so I could see him being.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which honestly is kind of weird because there's not like I don't think there's a large historical pile of mythological vampires that are gay. They're usually very, very straight, but okay.
That's the thing. Is, like,
I mean, I guess some of them don't have any. They're more like hedonistic morals, so they kind of do whatever they want, and they probably participate in everything and anything debauchery-wise, but I don't know of very many of them that are that historically well known, so they're probably all modern versions, which means somebody's fantasy.
like anime does this a lot, where it's like, okay, here's a character that's kind of flamboyant, and you just in the back of your mind is like, oh, he's probably, but you don't.
They got full on like traps. They've got freaking I don't even know all the terms they use, but they've got like 150 different things, and that's obviously hyperbole. They have like 150 different things that are each different terms they use for a different thing, where in the West would just be called transsexual or cross-dressing. It's totally different in Japan. So trying to compare these things without detailing them individually is a bit weird.
Yeah.
But because it's not like, oh, they're not showing him participate in those activities, they're not
Yeah.
like glorifying it or anything
But they're optional because the gays are there.
like that, then yeah, it's not a huge deal. But if there's like straight up gay sex scenes, and I'm just count me out with that.
But you have to, oh my gosh, you have to go out of your way. You're drawing a conclusion before the conclusion is even created in front of you. You're making this claim that I'm out because there are full-blown sex scenes, specifically of the homosexual type. Okay, don't watch them. Don't interact with them. Don't even make it a thing. Play the game to keep Henry straight. There you go. There's your motivation. Play the game as straight as possible and get him married. Be as based as you possibly can be to prevent him from being gay. There you go. We've solved the conundrum for you.
Some
Yeah.
some characters you would think would not be down for it, right? And so it would be
Yeah.
And some characters are
their
not.
character to say, no, what are you, a freak? I'm gonna go burn you alive.
Right.
I didn't do the witch burning until the Renaissance, but yeah. The Victorian era, I mean, I think. Is it Victorian? I think it's Victorian. But yeah, like that's how they treat the gay stuff. They're like, yeah, this is behavior the church condemns. That's the story in Bohemia in the 15th century. That's the point. Because guess what? You can do carousing, gambling, and all that other stuff that's sinful. But I don't see you be like, I'm not going to play the game because he carouses, gets drunk, and gambles. You don't do that. So it's pretty much one-sided puritanical belief for whatever reason. I'm not saying you have to play it. I'm not saying you have to promote it. I'm just saying be less disingenuous about it, since you've already admitted you don't know much about the topic. You didn't do the research for it. Could we at least get the idea of consistency? Because I'm not getting any at this point. And I get that some people have they have a quick draw view of what's going on. And maybe they're not too far off the mark. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying I have every ounce of knowledge in the world. But perhaps, just maybe, the average person that you're hearing this stuff from is wrong. Shocked Pikachu face. So.
You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it's just wild, especially because fantasy games a lot of times will have these thinly veiled analogs for bigotry and stuff. And
Mhm.
so it's like, I hate mages. I want them all to be burned alive, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah. But boy, am I ever big on that bathhouse scene. Boy, I'm big on
That's the thing. If these games added a
I'm fully behind racism, bigotry, etc. being in games, because there are story methods in which you can have those being in the game to show and explain that they are bad. and how to avoid them, how to spot the villain, etc., by them existing in the contents of the game. I mean, they do this in Witcher. They're always talking about those knife ears, or those little short stacks, like the dwarves, the hatred for the dwarves, hatred for the elves, people thinking, well, you're on their side, you're on our side, blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. That's in The Witcher. And you can tell the morals of the story by participating in the story. You don't have to be against or for. You can just observe and see it. Man, like, that doesn't seem right. And that's the moral of the story, kind of a thing. Now, nowadays, everyone needs their morals painted on their forehead and shove their face into a mirror because they're too blind and deaf and dumb to see the obvious moral conflicts because people don't understand morals anymore. But that's a different story entirely.
Character, because like they'll put some in that are deliberately racist against orcs or this or that, but if they put in a character that was just like, I don't get those gays out of here, they're disgusting, people would love that character. That's why they don't do it, because they would be clipping all of their bigotry.
Well, they could be doing it bad, or they could be doing it good. That depends on how it's presented. Again, presentation is everything. Not everybody does everything correctly or well.
And they would be like, based. Wow, this character is so based.
Yeah,
so,
which did happen with the first game. So,
I feel like it's like, yeah, this person treats everyone like crap and murders people, and yeah, they're so based. It's like, that sounds like an allegory for Hitler all of a sudden. Just like, why? I don't think that's one stance you want to take. That's a bit hot.
so
yeah, and it kind of dovetails into like my primary complaint, which is, you're basically taking your own lore, your own established world, and your own prior explanation for why Henry was not down with the glory hole scene.
Right.
And you are saying you're flipping that. Like, apparently now we've just it's a retcon. That's what it is, right?
I mean,
apparently,
Not necessarily. It's just an RPG mechanic. And the bigger the world, the difference changes of RPGs. It could be a completely retcon. Maybe they did change that stuff. Maybe Embracer Group came and said, hey, you need to implement this stuff into your game. And they said, well, how can we implement this in the game in a way that makes sense with the genre RPG and also holds to the 15th century Bohemia place and what it all goes through in all of its entireties and everything, while still giving the player freedom to do this or that. It's like saying, okay, well, Henry shows up to a place. Does he save this guy or does he not save the guy? Well, that's a player choice. What would Henry do? Well, if it was what Henry would do, he would do it without giving you the choice. So there's obviously some level of wiggle room in that. Because that's how choice works in an RPG game. Hark back to the Fable games. Guess what? The Fable games had gay stuff in it too. Nobody cared. The games were good. It wasn't woke ideology. It was just they had options in the game because you could do things good, you could do things bad, you could stay neutral, you could do a little bit of everything. It's all in the presentation.
Between games, before Alex Jones could stop him, Henry drank the same water that turned the frog.
Oh no! No!
He drank the gay frog water. Now he's wearing vinyl pants and listening to Europop and frosting his hair. Yeah, absolutely. So.
Oh my. Well, I'm interested to see how they try to do damage control because they've made people mad on both sides of the aisle. So that'll be interesting.
Their damage control, quite frankly, has been terrible. Like, Warhorse Studios has done a horrific job of PR and jumping on issues that people have immediately. And there could be a lot of reasons for this. It could be because, well, NDAs, partnerships, they're not allowed to say certain things. They can't speak out against somebody, blah, 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 blah. It could be because they have to do Embracer Group stuff that they can't do things that counter that. I don't know. Ultimately, they should have figured something out and come at it and just silenced everyone's concerns and just be like, look, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to make sure this all works. We got you covered. Don't worry about it. And with their prior goodwill, that should probably calm everybody down. Now, we know a lot of it because Daniel Vavro has said things to us, albeit when he's not raging and ranting at people because of him just being a temperamental tantrum baby. But we know that there are certain aspects. Like, we know that it takes multiple specifically decided actions to get to the main gay content in that regard. There's other gay characters that are just gay because they were gay in the first game, like the bad guy. They're just going to be there because it's fine, because historically speaking, that makes sense. It also makes sense that the church in the game condemns it. So even if you do participate in it, you're still getting the message saying, hey, that's bad. People are going to treat you differently. Like, you have to still deal with the consequences of your actions. It's an RPG. Welcome to Fable. Like, this isn't revolutionary. This is very, very normal in the RPG world. But everyone's making it seem like it's the first time they've ever seen freaking comet fly by or something. Like, yes, we know from historical aspects, from all different types of things, comets fly through the sky. It's not the first time. Welcome to the world and looking up.
Interesting.
Exactly. So, but it's just those kind of retcons. A retcon for any reason is dumb, right? Look
I agree.
at all the
I agree.
people. You look at all the people.
And again, it goes back to the whole, can a straight guy do gay stuff? And I don't know, decide he didn't like it or something and then stop being gay. Is it possible to start or stop being gay? Whatever the case, can a gay person be straight? Is it bisexuality? Whatever the case might be. They didn't understand or terminology those the same way in the ancient world, so we can't just assume they understand it the way we understand it. And keep in mind, this is what, 600 years? 600 years? Yeah. No. Yes. About 600 years ago. That's a long freaking time to have cultural context be completely different.
People mad because the Star Wars expanded universe got written out of existence,
Mhm.
right? And
That's a reason to be upset, yes.
that's a pretty benign, because there's not a whole lot of socio-political stuff involved there. Well, now there is with Disney, but there wasn't initially, right?
Right.
But now the retcon is, I guess in the first game, he's an agoraphobic homosexual. He couldn't come out of the closet, so he's we're just gonna make him a new character.
Wow. Yeah.
They're not only upending their own continuity.
And this is a problem because they didn't exactly clarify it well enough. They probably didn't clarify it well enough the first time to explain, but they also probably weren't expecting Embracer Group to come in and potentially have them added in, which is perfectly valid and viable for an explanation. Because, will you stop pushing my mic, Missy? Sorry, the cat's hit my mic. Stop it. Yeah, kitty. Kitty Cam. Say hi. She's run. Anyway, as I was saying, it's a reasonable expectation to be like, we had it this way. They're like, well, you have to change it now. And they're like, well, how can we do this to do as little damage as possible? AKA, give you the choice to go that way or not go that way. And if you choose not to go that way, congratulations, you're playing the game like everybody else is. It's the least damaging to the brand. It's the least damaging to things while still being forced down a pipe that you didn't want to go down to begin with, but still make everyone more or less happy. But you can't make puritanical people happy unless you completely scrub the thing clean of anything they might not like, which is pretty much everything, so you can't really go anywhere with that.
They're upending the medieval Christian framework of the.
They're really not, though, and that's the part I don't think Razorfist knows about. I don't know how much he's done research. I know he's much more well-versed at this than Melanie Mack is, but I also know that it's not something that you just flippantly look at and then make just claims of some sort. You got to look at the big picture. Why could they possibly be doing this? People have the urge to jump the gun and just say, well, it's because of money, or they want to appeal to a wider audience or a younger audience or whatever the case might be. There's not enough people in this genre of like medieval RPGs that care about that kind of content. They're just not. They're playing Fortnite. That's where all the gays are. Looking at you, Jeremy, you the homosexual man. But needless to say, all of this could be avoided if people were doing at least basic proper research. I don't have to dig very far. I can just see like boom, boom, boom. I watched a couple videos. I mulled over several tweets on X. It wasn't that difficult to get the grand scheme of things over the course of a week. It really wasn't. The only reason I even made this video is because these guys made the video, and then I was like, wait a minute. That's just being flippant about the conversation. That's not actually promoting the conversation in a healthy form.
Original game, and their explanations are just completely insincere. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
And again, that might be because of a legal aspect, and they can't actually tell us what they want to say, because they could have said, well, I want them to kick rocks. But they couldn't, because Embracer Group.
They had this giant dumpster fire on Steam, and
And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to defend Warhorse Studios per se. Definitely not Daniel Vavro, because he's ruining his own reputation. But if Warhorse is doing what they can do, and their explanations make logical, reasonable sense, it's unlikely that's done because of DEI, because DEI is not logical in any shape or form. It's a bull in a china shop. It just breaks everything.
Sure, you've caught wind of some of it. Like, when did you first hear about all of this?
I just heard about this, like, I don't know, was that last week?
I want to say like an hour ago.
Whenever that was making rounds about, well, Saudi Arabia saying that it was an unskippable scene, and apparently it's not actually, but that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
And
So we know it's not an unskippable scene, but we don't know any details about it. They're like in the same tweet.
And that it was going to be banned there. So I saw all of that. And that's when it first came on my radar, because I didn't really know anything about this series at all before that. So
it's tough. I saw a little cutscene or little screenshots of cutscenes where it was like you and Hans Capen, who's kind of a princeling, who you had a bromance in the first game. Like it was
Still have a bromance in the second one.
right.
Lethal. It was Lethal Weapon. He was Danny Glover, and you were Mel Gibson.
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
right. So that was the thing. Now you're.
Well, she wouldn't know, because at a puritanical aspect, there's sex and violence and all this horrific stuff we can't watch because it's not good Christian content or something of that nature, because that has nothing to do with Christianity. But okay, go for it.
Hey, by the way, I want to see your butt. Like what?
It's like, oh no, that's the thing
And it's nothing gay between Hans and Henry.
about these kind of, because
That's already been confirmed, by the way.
society's gotten all gay, then now whenever you have characters that are just friends, it's like they want to retcon lore from like ancient stuff like Lord of the Rings. Oh, Sam and Frodo are totally gay. And
False, they are not.
it's like, man, you can't even have two
No.
guy characters that are close friends, or two girl characters, because everything's gay now. And
Yeah,
it's
and they
insane.
retcon all of it. That Lord of the Rings thing is really blatant, because it was not
Oh,
only
yeah.
supposed to be emblematic of like two really good friends, but there was an element of he had been inspired by World
I do like this part. Razor Fist, I think, is very onto this. He missed the word, so I'll pop the word in when it gets there.
War One. J.R.R. Tolkien
Mhm.
actually talked about this. He was inspired by the sort of officer relationship between like the officer and his troops or whatnot, and there was kind of this sort of devoted bond that developed.
The officer and the Batman, and no, not Bruce Wayne. Batman is a position of basically an officer's right-hand man, second-hand man, whatever you want to call him. And Tolkien had his own Batman, so that type of relationship he put through Frodo and Sam.
Between them, I forget what the second, the officer and his
The Batman.
second, essentially. And so one was expected to take care of everything. The officer was expected to be vigilant and give orders and execute his duties faithfully. And it was very like Frodo was the officer and Samwise was the second. And that was
Batman.
the idea there. And one was not disrespected just because he was subservient to the other. Now, now
They had different roles, but they were both of equal value.
apparently it's catcher and pitcher. That's how that works.
I guess so. Which, I mean, I better not play around with this lore. I was
That's just Reddit lore. It's stupid because Reddit's stupid.
trying to figure out who would be who, but then it's like,
No,
I give them too
no,
much ammo. I'm
no.
gonna give them too much.
If you actually have to figure that out, you weren't paying attention to the people claiming that that's what it was about.
When are you getting your moderatorship over on Reddit?
I know, my goodness. But anyway, is there any okay, so as somebody who has played the first Kingdom Come Deliverance game, is there anything that they can explain that would make you want to go ahead and play this second one?
At this point, no. I didn't pre-order it, and I'm so glad I did.
And you don't have to. That's the best part. You don't have to pre-order it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying that's a choice you have to make yourself, and you can make that yourself. No one has to hold your hand in doing so. That being said, if Razorfist somehow heard this whole piece put together thing and was like, you know what, that actually makes sense, and maybe that changes his mind a little bit, maybe moves the needle an inch or two, maybe that would be enough for like, you know what, maybe I'll give it a shot. Why not? And maybe he enjoys it. Maybe he realizes, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal to begin with because the average person isn't going to pursue that line of play because they're not interested in it. And maybe, just maybe, that'd get him where he wants to be. I don't know. So all I can really do is say, you know, Razor Fist, there's a whole picture out there of the puzzles put together completely, or at least mostly completely, that explains this as best as you could possibly imagine.
I gotta be honest, because it's just, it didn't belong there. It belongs there, and there's a little bit of a controversy too, where
and you put in how the church treats it, and how everybody that you come into contact with that knows about your relationship will treat you is very much real life like in what would be considered a Christian Bohemia. So okay,
they kind of back down on having NBA Americans in the game too. There's
they still have a black guy.
They add the basketball American.
Yes, there's a Harlem Globetrotters game breaks out in the middle of it. Yeah, no, it's like a wise man from Arabia or something.
It's a scholar.
Something like there's a Saracen or a Moor or something in the.
I believe he's a Moor
game, and he takes the time to give like a cultural lecture. Oh, we treat our women much better than yours.
Okay. Do you know why that makes sense? Because any of the Muslim groups think they're in the right. Shocking. Somebody of a group thinks their group is better than the other groups. Shocked Pikachu face number 3. Like, this makes sense. I don't know why this is a controversy in it at all, because it's like, oh, well, they made it. Of course he thinks he's in the right, because he's of a faith group that fully believes that they're the right ones. Duh. It's like every pro football team, basketball team, fans, whatever, whoever they are, they go and they think their team's the best team. Unless, of course, you come to the honest ones who are like, yeah, we're not the best, but I still love them. But even then, they think they're the best team to be a fan of because they're the fan of that team. But that's the whole thing. The entire concept is that the Christians would say, we treat our women the best. The Muslims would say, we treat our women the best. The Hindus would say, we treat our women. Everybody thinks they treat everybody, their people, the best because they're the best. That's the whole thing. It's practically a joke at this point. So you can go to them and say, but you actually treat your woman like crap. That doesn't make sense. We don't treat our women like crap. So then it kills the entire joke. But again, if Embracer comes in and says, we need you to put this in here, it makes logical sense that a scholar would come into the employ of a king and give him advice or whatever, but everybody else is racist towards him and hates his guts. well, it makes sense that he's going to have a hard time in that place. It makes sense that he'd be there because the king asked for him or recruited him on one of his campaigns, or if he was, visiting someplace and wanted to hire him to do whatever job he is to do. That's a whole thing. But there's also consequences attached to his existence. Somebody tries to frame him for stealing something, so he gets in trouble, and then Henry has the option of framing him, blackmailing him, or being like, no, he didn't do it, because he didn't do it. It's like that. There's consequences, and things happen based upon the game and the consequences and choices. That's the whole point of an RPG. It gives you consequences for all your actions.
Oh.
Right? It's that
Of
thing.
course.
So that's kind of an additional element. I completely forgot about that actually going into this controversy.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's an
Okay.
added element. So to me, they're just backing down on everything the first game stood for.
No. That's a very superficial view of it. And I get it. If you didn't have the whole picture, it probably would look that way. There is a bigger picture, so we shouldn't look at it that way. Or, at very least, ignore everything I say, step back, take a look at all the evidence yourself, piece it together, and see if you can come to the same conclusion, or you can at least see a sliver of what I'm talking about. If you can do that honestly, and you come to the same conclusion as like Razor Fist, Melanie Mac, or whatever, then by all means have your viewpoint. I'm not here to tell you your viewpoint, except to tell you that that's not the whole puzzle piece.
And it's pretty obvious. Look, we're seeing right now the last
It's obvious people are superficial about this stuff.
waning gas with games like Concord and Dustborn and all this garbage. Games that were made during COVID.
Yep.
I will say though, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, the combat system was definitely gay. But again, I have a video, not too old, it's only a couple weeks old, about my idea of Kingdom Come Deliverance and what I would like to experience out of that. Guess what? There's lots of things to complain about, but there's also a lot of things to be like, wow, this is fantastic. A lot of the stuff they're talking about is a big, huge nothing burger because you don't ever make it happen that way, and that's up to you to do so.
Games that were made using that COVID, ESG, DEI money that people were throwing around.
And it's quite possible that's the case of what happened, but we don't have any receipts saying that it is what happened, so we don't know. So making that claim would be very foolish to do.
And all that money came with strings attached.
The DEI money did come.
And we're just now getting to the point where the last of those games are going away. And it's really, really sad to realize that maybe Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the sequel to such a based game, and you should play the first game, by the way.
Okay.
It is a very fun game if you can figure out how the combat works, because playing the whole game without combat's kind of annoying.
Is sadly, it has succumbed to this syndrome. Really, really sad.
It's gone woke. And in Trump,
oh my gosh, now she's gonna get political for no stupid reason.
America, people are over it now. They're like, okay, this is gone. Even on TikTok, I'm seeing all these Gen Zs who are like, done with the pronoun stuff now. Not in Trump's America. Like, everybody is over it.
If I may swear via quote, everything woke turns to shit.
Exactly. So look what happened. But there you have it.
There it is.
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, looking pretty woke.
Superficial reading, and yeah. This was very unfortunate. I don't like it. I watched this and it legitimately made me angry. Like, I legitimately was mad because I was just like, this is so much misinformation. It's somebody who didn't take into account all the details, the finer things in life, as we might say, and not going after sources, not saying, hey, does anybody know about this, that, and the other? They both have fairly big followings on Twitter/X and on YouTube. just to ask, like, what is your thoughts? Is this woke? Is this not woke? Whether it be a short, I wouldn't recommend using shorts on YouTube, or if it was on Twitter/X, which is probably the more reasonable place to get more answers easier. Be like, yeah, send me some screenshots. My DMs are open. What do you think might happen because of this? Blah 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 blah. That would have been ideal to get everything going in the right direction. To maybe, I don't know, have an informed position. Because what we have here is not an informed position, because they missed the majority of the conversation, because it almost seemed or appeared like they just wanted to dislike it. I don't think Razorfist dislikes Kingdom Come Deliverance as a series. I think he's hyper cautious, and I get it. I'm hyper cautious about this content too, because guess what? I saw it as well as everybody else did. It's very obvious in a lot of situations and scenarios. But when a game is woke, it's obvious. Like, really obvious. Like, they don't hide it. There's no hiding it. You didn't hide Dustborn. You didn't hide Dragon Age Veilguard. You didn't hide Star Wars Outlaws. You didn't hide any of this crap. It's very, very, very obvious. Although Star Wars Outlaws was not, like, crazy over-the-top woke. It was just a bad game in general. You can hide Assassin's Creed Shadows, even if they try to adjust stuff. They'd have to completely remake the game in a lot of ways in order to get away with that. But a lot of people are trying to put something like a label on this game as if it's an accurate label. It's really not. And that's the problem. It's like, we should already know what is going to happen. We should already know like how people are going to behave and react, which, I mean, I kind of called it, nothing you guys would be able to see, but I was talking to some friends. I was like, this is how people are going to act. That's the way it ended up going. People jumped the fence. I didn't think that the more public figures would be jumping on the bandwagon for that and just kind of trying to crucify it, but it was the puritanical right, I guess, that jumped on it the hardest at the first chance they got, almost like they didn't want it to succeed and they weren't interested in it. I'd like to think Razorfist wants it to succeed because he liked the first one. I also think he's just being overly, I don't want to say cautious, overly judgmental about it for a plethora of reasons. So, that being said, hopefully it will all, go away, so to speak, in terms of how people are going to deal with this. But I'm hoping that when it comes out next month, it just goes out and just instantaneously takes care of any of these issues people possibly have. So I want the misgivings to go away and the truth to come out. And if I'm wrong, then by all means, I want the truth to be what comes out. I don't think I am from the amount of research I did on it, and I'm not like Madame Savvy autistic about it in that regard, but I did put enough pieces together to be like, there's a logical explanation for things, and unfortunately sometimes studios get interfered with, and that's what causes problems. But be as it may, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm not nearly as happy as I usually am because I didn't want to make this, because I didn't want this to be a topic. I didn't want people to be covering it this way, and it was really irritating for me. But there's a whole lot of stuff going on that I just want it to be over with. I want it to be done, and we won't know. And until I knew about the Blood of Dawnwalker, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was my most anticipated game of the year. Now it's the Blood of Dawnwalker, even before I heard any of the controversial stuff, because the Blood of Dawnwalker looks chef's kiss great, and by a great studio full of great developers. So I hope that we won't hear more of this nonsense, and hopefully if anybody does talk about it, they talk about it a little bit more truthfully, or at least researched at the bare minimum. Truthfully and research, ideally. But we'll go ahead and end that there. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Links down below for Discord and Twitter/X. Love for you to join the questioners on our quest for all the questions. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.